It's 2025. You open the news and you see US bombs Iranian nuclear sites. You blink, you scroll, Iran vows retaliation. You blink again, scroll some more, Trump posts in all caps, peace for the world, congratulations world. It's another Tuesday though, just right, like basically. Yet somehow it's being framed like this big peacekeeping mission by the US. Now the question is that like a smart media strategy or a full-on illusionist act? So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the war machine with a content plan. Saudi Cup and welcome to the latest episode here for the Funkit Pod Mindful Media and Communication. And I'm already hesitating at the mindful because when we're looking at the White House's and Trump team's media plan, mindful is maybe not the word I would be using. Yeah, sometimes it makes you want to scream into the void, to be honest. But today we're trying to figure out why do they make us scream into the void or want to scream into the void. So the question today is like, how is war framed in the media? And in particular, right now, how the Trump administration has turned crisis into a PR campaign. Again. So before you like yell out snowflake, this is not about who's right or wrong geopolitically, not a politics podcast. This is about how public narratives are crafted. And trust me, you don't need to be into international relations and politics to see how this same communication playbook plays out in your algorithm every single day. And that's why we talk about it, okay? So let's start with the basics that we discussed in previous episodes a few times too. So the foundational concept of media communication is framing theory. It was coined way back in the day by Erving Goffman. Then it was applied to the media by Ant-Man and others. Also, yours truly just written a book waiting to be published where I'm trying to apply it and explain framing now with a more modern twist, like to explain how is it happening in the AI age, for example. So framing is about selecting and emphasizing certain aspects of a story to shape public perception. Yeah, if you're watching this episode, for example, either on socials or Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're watching, not just listening, I appreciate the listeners too, but if you're watching, you see me in a frame, right? You don't see everything around me. You don't see left and right, for example. You don't see my cat sleeping somewhere there. That's framing. I picked that frame because I thought that's the frame that makes me look the best, I guess. And that's what media outlets and communicators, media teams, PR teams do as well. They pick the right frame to put over whatever they want to talk about. So in war reporting, for example, that means, okay, there's this war happening. Now, who are we? Are we the liberators or are we the aggressors? Clear answer, right? Is it a preemptive action or is it an unprovoked attack? Of course, in this case, it's a preemptive action, right? Civilian death, collateral damage, or war crimes. You can see you frame those things in a way that it helps your cause. So that's the framing theory. And while the outcome, the actual thing that's happening might be the same, the way you talk about it influences the way the audiences will understand it and think about it. If we're the liberators, we're working, striking on a preemptive action so that they cannot get the atom bomb, the nuclear bomb, then we are the good ones, right? Over there on the other side, they probably say like, we didn't do anything to the US, it's an unprovoked attack, how dare them, right? So framing the same incident from different angles. So that's the framing theory. And talking about war and media coverage is, of course, always a bit difficult. And again, I'm not trying to make it sound too easy, because there's, of course, lots to it. But from, again, media point of view, that's what we're doing, right? There are a few more theories, approaches that outlets and, again, the communication team can choose to make sure that the audience is on their side. And war usually is, from a framing point of view, not too difficult to frame. This current conflict right now with the US, Iran, Israel, and so on, it's not just about foreign policy. It's also about domestic media management. Yeah, Trump's team knows very well how to flood the zone with headlines. Yep, crisis always means attention. So if there's a crisis, all the attention will be there. Let's assume Donald Trump, just assuming, right? Assuming, not saying this, assuming Donald Trump would be in the news for something bad that happened, some mistake they've made or something like this, or lots of criticism, which of course not the case. But just assume he would be in the news, or there would be lots of criticism that he has to face. If there's a crisis over there, it's like, hey, look over there, crisis, oh no, we have to do something. So crisis always means attention. If there's a crisis and someone criticizes your handling of it, it's easy to say they're anti-us. In this case, Trump could say, they're criticizing us, we are protecting the American people, they're anti-American. That's an easy way to play the Uno reverse card on your opposition. Say like, you're criticizing me, I'm protecting the country, you're not American. Look at them, those anti-American Democrats all the time. I'm just giving an example, okay? You can also, in war times, of course, in particular, use very patriotic imagery and symbol language to trigger very emotional responses. Yeah, when it comes to war, it's very easy to paint it black and white. We are the good guys, they're the bad guys. It's easier to do this, while in other national or even international relation disputes, it's very complicated. But I have to explain in great detail. There's usually not black and white, but in war times, it's also not black and white, but the framing can be, right? Framing-wise, it's easy. It's like, we are the good ones, they are the bad ones, okay? So simple language can trigger very emotional responses, in particular during crises, and war being a great crisis, of course. And then it also helps, it always helps, but in crisis times even more so, if you lean on repetition and slogans. Yeah, for example, peace through strength, for example. Right? And you could repeat this over. I mean, Trump has been doing this ever since he went into politics, with Make America Great Again, for example. Right? And then you repeat it, and those slogans, keep them easy, keep them simple, trigger emotions, until the audience buys in. Also, what happens during crisis, and again, we're sticking to the war now, there's lots of manufactured content happening. And we talked about it once before, but if you remember, and if not, no problem, I'll explain, but there's a propaganda model talked about by Noam Chomsky, for example, and Herman. But I mean, the propaganda model is rather familiar. If not, let me explain. So propaganda basically means that media subtly or not so subtly nudges the public toward consensus. Okay? Back then, Chomsky and so on, they talked about how corporate media tries to nudge the public toward elite consensus. Okay. In 2025, that process now is kind of supercharged. mainstream networks repeat official statements all the time. Where have we seen that? With, let's be honest, a very little critical analysis. Why? Well, because it's them versus us. In this regard, it's the Democratic-leaning media outlets in the US and the Republic-leaning media outlets in the US. And they're not really questioning anything that comes from those parties that they're supporting. They're just regurgitating it. That's why when that interview like a week ago or so went public and kind of viral, and Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, where Tucker Carlson actually questions Ted Cruz about his knowledge of Iran. You're like, okay, I'm not a Tucker Carlson fan by any means, but you're like, oh, so you can actually ask questions. Hey, see? And that reaction happened because we're not used to it anymore. We're not used to the media, actually, mainstream media in particular, actually questioning anything that they're getting fed. Usually they're just like regurgitating, just putting it out there because that's their line and our line is better than the other line, right? And social media is flooded with like nationalistic takes and reaction clips. And you've seen that from other political happenings as well. But when it comes to crisis and war, of course, it's even more so. And usually dissenting voices, they're like, should we really? They usually get drowned out. Not banned, right? Because, hey, freedom of speech. Just a bit sick. But they get buried in the noise. They're not banned, but they get buried in the noise. You only get banned if you don't have your social media or a public, on a visa in the US. So, different topic. So you end up with a very narrow Overton window. Yeah, you're either for the strike in this case, or you are anti-American traitor that hates freedom. And very few mainstream outlets dare to actually ask, was this actually now legal under international law, or do we not care about it? And that's that, right? Now, since we're not asking any questions, or the media doesn't ask any questions, well, we have to ask a question. And the question that I want to ask is, who's paying that narrative bill, actually? Because this is, from my point of view, where it gets like extra, well, I'm in Thailand, extra spicy. While media organizations run with headlines, they're also making money from the outrage. Clicks, ad revenue, engagement loops. You're seeing it yet? It's monetized attention war. The public's emotional volatility becomes a business model. And that's one of the main reasons why the media is all in on panic, crises, and so on. They don't earn anything, not much at least, when everything's okay, when everything is smooth, or when there are just like minor disagreements. Breaking news. Democrats and Republicans had a civil debate. No one cares about it, right? So, yeah, the war is good for the money. Yep. And the outrage, all those things works because they're clicking on it very fast. In the meantime, like backroom deals, international alliances, and actual geopolitical stakes, they don't drive clicks. They don't drive any value. No one wants to hear about that. So that's why we get headlines like Trump asserts dominance overseas instead of experts warn of global instability, legal concerns over unilateral actions, for example. So now, knowing that, right, that panic sells, and there's another theory to it called moral panic theory. We had this in a previous podcast as well, but probably coming soon again if the bombing continues. So now the question is, what can we learn from all of that, right? And you don't need to be a political analyst to care about this, because again, it happens in your algorithm all the time, across all sectors, on all platforms. Yeah, in marketing it happens. Reframing data as success stories, for example. 1,000 people liked it. 10,000 didn't. In tech, calling surveillance personalization, for example. Yeah, you probably agree to all the data surveillance, like, hey, we're just doing this to give you personalized whatever ads and stuff. And you're like, yeah, sure. That's surveillance, and we're agreeing to it. Then reframing. Education. Hey, labeling like budget cuts as efficiency improvements, for example. So the question basically is, how do we stay media literate in a world where crisis is just another headline template? So anytime you can consume media, any kind of media, not just the news, right? Any kind of media, always going to ask, who benefits from this frame? And it's not as easy as saying, like, yes, the US, well, sure, Trump, sure. But who else? Do they have allies that benefit from it, for example? Do they work with anyone, right, for example? And same in advertisement. Who benefits from that? Yeah, of course, the company that's advertising, but who else? There's probably even more behind that, right? Besides the agency who made the ad, for example, and so on. You gotta ask also, like, what's being left out of the frame? What don't you see in the frame? There must be a reason why the frame is narrow at times, right? Why do they keep the frame so narrow, the framing? What don't they want us to see? I sound like Alex Jones again, like a conspiracy theorist. So ask those questions reasonably, okay? Okay. And lastly, any kind of media you're watching wants you to do something. I want you to A, think, and B, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment on Spotify or on YouTube, wherever you're consuming this. It would be very cool because it helps to reach a wider audience. See, I want something from you too. So everybody wants you to do something. So ask, what do they want me to do? What are they trying to trigger right now? Because everybody's trying to trigger something. They try to trigger or activate something in us. Be it like a sub and a like and a share and a comment, like what I just did, or with the Trump media machine, something else, ads, something else. So what are they trying to trigger? And the cool thing about this is, and that's hopefully the positive thing, once you see that frame and you realize, hey, they're framing, they're being the media, you actually can step out of the frame and be like, oh, okay, I see the frame, let me look behind it, what's there? And that's the real power that comes with understanding that, okay? So that said, I'm stopping here right now. I don't want to talk any more war, to be honest. I hope that helps to see how that media war machine is kind of operating a little, and it helps you to, helps you to also step out of the frame or behind the frame or look behind the frame once in a while. Sometimes pause before retweeting, re-Xing, blue skying. Think about who benefits from the frame, and you know what to do. Until then, stay safe. It's very important these days. Stay safe, take care, and we talk next time. Sorry, Cal.